Hi, I'm Glen, Scrivener, and we're in Matthew chapter 3 for the baptism of Jesus. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt filthy? Have you ever felt unclean? Have you ever felt stained on the inside? I have a friend who was counseling a man who had made some terrible decisions in his life that had ruined his marriage, ruined his family, ruined his business. This man said to my friend, "I wish I could take my whole life, bundle it up in a big washing machine and put it on the hottest wash possible until all the grit and the grime was gone." Can you relate to that man? I can. Have you ever wanted to have a shower on the inside? I have many, many times. And the people here in Matthew chapter 3 are coming to John the Baptist at the Jordan River. In verse 5, we read that people went out to John the Baptist from Jerusalem and all Judea and the whole region of the Jordan, confessing their sins. They were baptized by him in the Jordan River. Baptism is a ritual washing. It's a ceremony by which you come and the water washes over your body, but the belief is that you're doing something more in terms of the cleansing that perhaps might happen on the inside. But John's baptism could only ever get you wet. How could you ever truly be clean? Well, these people come from all over Jerusalem and Judea, and they come for this ritual washing. They're all claiming to be unclean. They're also claiming to be unsettled. We get that from verse 5. Here are people from Jerusalem and Judea, and yet they are coming to the Jordan River. The Jordan River was the barrier, the border into the land of Israel. The Jordan was the barrier that you crossed to come into Israel, to be truly at home in God's promised land. Fascinatingly, here are people who have the right postcode. They live in Jerusalem, they live in God's land, and yet they feel like they've got to go out and come back in properly. They might live at the correct address, but they don't feel at home with God. They are unsettled. Have you ever felt unsettled in life? Have you ever felt like you are not at home in this world, not at home with God? According to the Bible, all of us are not at home. We are born into this world disconnected from God. All of us have had the experience of offering up a prayer and feeling like it just sort of bounces off the ceiling. There is that disconnection, that feeling of unsettledness. And so the people in John chapter 3, they come to John the Baptist, they come to the Jordan River. They are unclean, they are unsettled, and they're also unfruitful. Fruitfulness language is all throughout this chapter. So look, for instance, at verse 8. John the Baptist says to these people, "Produce fruit in keeping with repentance." John the Baptist is picking up a theme from the rest of the Bible that the human race are a bit like a tree. Perhaps think of a Christmas tree. A Christmas tree, think of its history. There it is in the forest, flourishing, alive and verdant. And then around about November, in the name of Christmas joy, we go into the forest, we hack the tree to death, we wrench it from its natural habitat, we bring it indoors, and from the minute that that tree is cut off, it's dead and it's perishing. Of course, it doesn't look dead, it doesn't look perishing, it looks flourishing and verdant and alive, and it smells great. But it's dead and it's perishing, and the needles start to drop. But that doesn't matter. We dress it up with all sorts of decorations. We surround it by family and festivities. And no matter how brown it gets, we keep on celebrating until at some point in January we just throw it out. That's a picture of the human race according to the Bible. From the beginning we've been cut off from the Lord. As our first parents turned from the Lord, so we've been cut off from our life source, and we're dead and we're perishing. We don't look dead or perishing. We look and we might smell great, and yet we feel a physical perishing, and we know a spiritual perishing. We know this unfruitfulness that John speaks of here. I know for myself that so often I can say such loving things to my wife and then in the same breath almost say things that are so cutting, so hurtful, so harsh. Good fruit and then bad fruit coming out. What are we like? According to the Bible, we are unclean. We are unsettled. We are unfruitful. And if you are an unfruitful tree, according to the Bible, what is the only use for an unfruitful tree? Well, it just becomes firewood. In the Bible's understanding, that is the terrifying prospect for we trees who have been cut off from our life source. Verse 12, John says, the Lord's winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor, gathering his wheat into the barn and burning up the chaff with unquenchable fire. This is the state for us all. Cut off from our life source, producing such bad fruit. We're like producing chaff, not life-giving, nourishing wheat. No, we are cut off from our life source and we face an unquenchable fire. That is the natural state of humanity. Unclean, unsettled, unfruitful. And John keeps saying, the judge is coming, the judge is coming, the judge is coming. And on one level, we should be happy that the judge is coming. We should be happy that he's going to do this sort of cleansing work through his unquenchable fire. He's going to thresh the wheat and gather up the wheat into his barns. We should be glad that there will be this future of righteousness and peace when the Lord comes to thresh his people. And yet, what a terrifying prospect. The judge of all the earth is going to come. And then we read verse 13. I think verse 13 is one of the most astonishing verses in all the Bible. Verse 13 of Matthew chapter 3, then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. I think this is stunning. This is stunning. Think of all the different ways that this verse could run. This verse could run, Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan in order to judge all the sinners. That would be a perfectly righteous, perfectly right thing for the judge of all the earth to do. He could come and he could say, well, there you are. You're unclean, you're unfruitful, you're unsettled. I will judge you. They've put their hand up to being a sinner. Jesus could come and judge them. That would be perfectly right. But that's not what the verse says. Verse 13 does not say Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to judge them, nor does it say Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to baptize them. I mean, that would be a lovely way for the verse to continue, wouldn't it? Jesus finds all these sinners and he says, oh, let me give you a wash. That would be a lovely thing for him to do. But that's not what this verse says. This verse is revolutionary. This verse says Jesus came to the Jordan to be baptized by John. And you know what this is? This is a public relations disaster for Team Jesus. This is a marketing nightmare for anyone who's wanting to protect the brand integrity of Team Jesus. I mean, here is Jesus, the perfect, pure Son of God. He shows up at the sinners' convention. He shows up right in the midst of a bunch of people who are claiming to be unclean, unsettled, unfruitful. He shows up and he dives into the waters. It's stunning, isn't it? John the Baptist doesn't really know how to handle this situation. Verse 14, but John tried to deter Jesus, saying, I need to be baptized by you. Do you come to me? Jesus replied, let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented. We can understand what John is saying. He thinks he should be baptized by Jesus. Jesus should not get baptized. What's he doing? Let me give it to you in a sentence. Here's what Jesus is doing. Jesus is joining us in our filth so we can join him in his family. Joining us in our filth so we can join him in his family. And to be honest, this is the story of the whole Bible. The story of the whole Bible is Jesus Christ coming into our midst, into our failures, into our sufferings, into our sins, standing alongside us in solidarity with us, marching with us through the valley of the shadow of death, taking on all our burdens, taking on all our enemies, taking on that greatest last enemy, death, at the end, standing with us, standing for us, and rising again at the end. Why? So that he can invite us into his family. That's why Jesus comes. To join us in our filth, that we might join him in his family. The prophet Isaiah, 700 years earlier, said that when the Messiah came, he would be numbered among the transgressors. You could say he would be counted among all the sinners, counted among the failures like you and I. Can you picture the scene? There is the queue for the baptism. There are some people who feel very, very unclean, and Jesus cuts to the head of the queue. He dives into the waters and says, I will be with you and I'll be for you. Why does he join us in our filth? So that we can join him in his family. What's his family? Well, that's verses 16 and 17. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, This is my Son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. This is the family that you and I were made for. The family that was there before the world began. Before the world began, there was a Father loving his Son in the joy of the Holy Spirit. That family is home for you and I. I heard recently about a great youth convention where the speaker was addressing thousands of teenagers, and he said to the teenagers, I get the feeling that there's somebody here who before they came to the conference was told by their parents, I wish I'd never had you. And the speaker said, if that person is here tonight, I want them to come forward afterwards, and I'd like to talk with them and make sure they're okay, to pray with them. At the end of the speaker's message, 200 teenagers came forward. 200 teenagers hungry for a family that wants them. And right here we have the ultimate Father who is just pleased as punch with his most perfect Son, Jesus. And he says, you are my Son who I love. With you I am well pleased. That's the verdict that you and I were meant to hear. Even in the midst of all our filth, even in the midst of all our suffering and our sins, we were meant to hear that verdict. And you know how you hear it? You join Jesus in the waters. You join him at the failures convention. You join him among the sinners. You put your hand up and you say, yes, I am a sinner. I am unclean. I am unsettled. I am unfruitful. Yes, I am a sinner. But Jesus is my champion. Jesus is my Savior. He's joined me in my filth so that I can join him in his family. You come to Jesus, you admit your sin, and instantly when you put your hand into Christ's hand, you get his Father as your Father. You get his Spirit as your Spirit. And you get to hear that same verdict on your life. You are my child who I love. With you, I am well pleased. Do you feel unclean in life? Do you see who Jesus is? Won't you come to him? Won't you admit your filth? And won't you join his family?